Mpenzi mtazamaji wa UMILELE TV, nikukaribishe katika matangazo ya moja kwa moja kutokea hapa Battle Creek nchini Marekani, katika kijiji cha historia ya Waadventista wa Sabato hapa Battle Creek Marekani. Tunaenda kuangalia nyumba ya Mama Ellen G. White, na studio yetu imetembelewa leo na Mama Tamali kutoka Tanzania. Tupo naye hapa. Mama Tamali, hebu wasalimie watazamaji wanaokuangalia live kutokea pale Tanzania.
Bwana ni mwema na wakati wote. Tunamshukuru Mungu sana tukiwa maeneo haya ya Battle Creek, na hapa sasa tumetoka kuona hili kanisa lingine, tunaelekea kwenye nyumba sasa ya Mama White. Nafikiri mambo mengi tutawajuza kile kinachoendelea mahali hapo, na Mungu awabariki, endelea kwa pamoja nasi.
Asante sana. Huyo ni Mama Tamali ambaye tutakuwa naye hapa siku ya leo tukiangalia. Hapa tuko sawa sasa. Safari yetu ya kuelekea kwa nyumba, unaona hii ndio nyumba ya Mama Ellen G. White pamoja na mume wake James White. Tupo live tokea hapa Marekani, katika state ya Michigan hapa Battle Creek. Hapa unapoona ni watu wametoka mataifa mbalimbali, wametoka Canada na maeneo mengine kuja kuangalia historia hii ya muhimu katika kanisa letu. Hapa ni watu mbalimbali, lakini hii wamekuja nasi tumeungana nao. Okay, ngoja tutaingia ndani na tukishaingia ndani guide tour wetu atatueleza mambo mengi kuhusiana na nyumba hii ya Mama Ellen G. White. Hello. Hello. Kwa hiyo kuna snow kubwa, lakini kila jambo litaenda vizuri.
This right here, this is the back door of James Ellen White's house. There is some significance to us going in the back door. Back in those days, guests always went in the front door, but family always went in the back door. We always go in as family at this house here.
Najaribu kueleza kwamba kipindi hicho mlango wa nyuma ulikuwa unatumika kwa ajili ya watu wa familia, lakini na mlango wa mbele kwa ajili ya wageni. Hebu ingia pamoja nami hapa katika nyumba ya Mama Ellen G. White live kutokea hapa Michigan Battle Creek. Nami ninayotangazia ni Benson Mwashinga wa UMILELE TV, tuko based hapa Michigan, na mimi nikiwa naishi katika eneo la Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo. Okay, ngoja tuingie. Okay. Hapa tupo jikoni.
On behalf of James Ellen White, I'd like to welcome you to their house. Now, they had this home built for them in 1856. They lived here for 7 years, moving out in 1863. Now, when Ellen White was here in Battle Creek, she had both a housekeeper and a cook. Well, the rest of her life she did. Because she had more important things to do for the church. She had books to write, she had sermons to prepare. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, the cook started breakfast with family. One of the things that Ellen White loved for breakfast, she called them gems. We would call these biscuits. Now, Ellen White and I got along great. I love biscuits and gravy for breakfast. She could have brought the biscuits over to my house, or I brought the gravy here. We'd had good breakfasts together. Now, down this hallway here, the very far room down this hallway is referred to as the meal room or the grain room. The one in front of us is referred to as a buttery, because that's where they would churn their butter. That's also where they dry their herbs and vegetables. Switch places with you here a second. Now, when this house was built, it was also built without a well for drinking water. The neighborhood well was owned by a man by the name of Jonah Lewis. Jonah Lewis lived a little bit to the south of here. Jonah Lewis is like a modern day Daniel in that he'd go to his barn 3 times a day to pray. But he had the neighborhood well. So the cook probably would have sent Henry or Edson, one of the older boys, down there to get water for drinking and cooking. But James White thought that's a lot of hard work to get water for baths, for cleaning the floor, and for the laundry. So what they did is they dug a hole in the backyard. Now the original house stopped at that wall right there. They dug this hole in the backyard, they lined it with rocks, they plastered the walls, and then they ran the rain gutters in here. This is filled up with nice, soft, sweet rainwater. But when they put the addition on the house in 1861, they went across this cistern, as it was called, and then they put in this handy little pump head here. So they could pump the water they needed for their baths, for cleaning their floors, or for her automatic clothes washer. Well, it was to her, she hired a dime. Now, interesting story about this cistern. Willie, the third son of James and Ellen White, was a very curious little boy. So when the men were digging his cistern, he wanted to see it being dug. So he brought his rocking chair out to sit next to the hole. As the men got farther and farther down in the hole, little Willie couldn't see. So he had to bring his rocking chair closer and closer to the hole. Eventually the men got out to have lunch. Soon a scream was heard. You guessed it, Willie was in the bottom of the hole. So James White had to throw out across the top, swing down, and get Willie out. Willie was always in trouble. Every family's got a Willie, I'm sure of that. But Willie was always in trouble. There was also in this house that Willie drowned. 2 years old. Well, how can that be? Well, what it was is they were going to have some special meetings at the second meeting house. People were going to come from all over to Battle Creek for these special music, and they were going to need places to stay. So some of them were going to stay at James John White's house. So the cook, the housekeeper, and the nanny, Jenny Frazier, were to keep track of the boys and clean the house. Well, Jenny lost track of 2-year-old Willie. When she found him, he was head down in a bucket of dirty slop water. She pulled him out. She ran screaming down. Well, wait. Willie has drowned. Willie has drowned. Mrs. White says, well, hot water, cold water? She says, well, it's cold water. So she took Willie, she stripped all the clothing off him, laid him on a bank, started rolling him back and forth like a loaf of bread with his head down. The moisture started to come out of his mouth. In the meantime, somebody went running to the Review and Herald to get James. By the time James got here, Ellen White had Willie's naked little body pressed to her breast. She's trying to warm up that cold body. One of the neighbors says to James, you need to take that dead baby away from that woman. And James says, no, let her mother have her child. The Lord saw fit that Willie should live. Soon the body started to warm up. A whimper came onto his lips. As far as we know, there was no brain damage, but Willie was always in trouble. One more story about Willie. It was up at Wright, Michigan, where I lived. And they were, Mrs. White, Mrs. Rutt, and Mrs. Wilson were canning foods for upcoming meetings. It's a really, really hot day. Well, anyways, Herbert Wilson came walking into the kitchen, and he says to his mother, Mother, may I go across the road and play with Jimmy Rutt? Well, Mrs. Wilson says, it's fine with me as long as it's fine with Mrs. Rutt. Mrs. Rutt says, yeah, you can go over there and play with James, but you boys stay on the porch. Don't bother the neighbors. Just about the time Herbert's ready to go out the door, he sees Willie. So he says to Mrs. White, can Willie go with us too? Mrs. White says, well, as long as he obeys the rules. And Mrs. Rutt says, it's fine with me. It was, so the two boys left. Well, pretty soon, Mrs. Wilson got to thinking, you know what, sometimes kids make promises they don't always mean to keep. So instead she got up from the table, she went out, she looked across the road out the window, and sure enough, the three boys were on the front porch. But when she came back and told Mrs. White and Mrs. Rutt what the three boys were doing, immediately the other two women jumped up from the table. All three of them ran out the back door. They grabbed their skirts, they hiked them above their ankles, and they started running around the corner of the house toward the run home. Well, the three boys on the front porch, seeing these women come running at them, figured that probably what they're doing is wrong. So they immediately jumped off the porch and started running in the opposite direction. Well, entertainment was scarce back in those days, but if you'd have looked out the window this day, you'd have saw three women with their skirts hiked above their ankles, chasing three naked boys down the road. It got so hot they'd taken all their clothes off. Well, they captured the boys, they brought them back, they got them dressed. Mrs. Rutt punished Willie. Pretty soon one of the others come up to her and said, Ellen, we're just wondering if you could punish our boys too. Because we think it'd make more of an impression if you punish them than if we did. So as far as Herbert Rutt knows, him and Jimmy Rutt were the only two boys, other than the white boys, that were sprained by Ellen White. Willie was always in trouble.
Yeah, Mama Tamali hapa anajaribu kushika vifaa ambavyo Mama Ellen G. White alikuwa akivitumia jikoni hapa. Unajisikiaje kushika vifaa vya Mama Ellen G. White?
Yaani ninahisi kama nimeanza kupika. Ninashangaa sana. Namna ambavyo alikuwa anaoka mikate. Mikate yake imeokwa vizuri mno, iko hapa tumeonyesha. Hizi kuni ambazo zilitumika, haya ilikuwa ni majiko ambayo yalikuwa yanatumia vitu vya kisasa. Lakini unaona namna ambavyo eneo ambalo lilikuwa kama sehemu ya kuoshea vyombo. Ameweka na vitu vyake hapa. Kuna sabuni hii imewekwa kumbukumbu iko hapa. Kuna bakuli hili hapa. Baada ya kukuna vitu vyake vilikuwa vinaingia humo.
Kuchotea maji.
Ya kuchotea maji, vitu ambavyo vichotea maji kama hivi nimeshumaa. Lakini nimefurahia sana kuona jiko lake. Jiko lake lina vitu vya asili. Nilikuwa ninatamani kuangalia hili jiko huku.
Piso.
Hili jiko unaona ameweka vitu vya asili. Kuna maboga, kuna hoho, kuna vitunguu swaumu, kuna mboga ya majani, mpaka mayai yale yamewekwa pale. Ameweka vitu vizuri, vitu vya asili ambavyo tunatakiwa tuvitumie kwa ajili ya afya. Na kila mahali ameweka vitabu vyake, kila mahali vilikuwepo. Naona akipika alikuwa akisoma, alikuwa akitafakari.
Okay. Sasa tunaenda katika eneo na hapa tutaona kitabu cha kwanza cha Great Controversy ambacho kiliandikwa kwa mara ya kwanza ambacho Mungu alimwambia afanye haraka.
All right. Not only was this the first home that James L. White owned, it is the only home that all 6 members of the family lived in. They had 4 boys: Henry, Edson, Willie, and John Herbert. But you'll notice we only have 3 pictures. That is because the baby, John Herbert, was born in this house and died in this house. He only lived for 3 months. He died of encephalitis, and he's buried out in Oak Hill Cemetery. It is also while they lived in this house here that the Civil War is being fought here in the United States. Right directly across that road there used to be huge fairgrounds, and that is a part of the northern I used to train. Well, Henry and Edson, the 2 older boys, they thought that military life was kind of a fun thing. So when Mom and Dad went to sleep at night, they would sneak out of the house and march around with the troops. When James L. White found out that was happening, they thought, we need to move out of here. So they sold this house in 1863. They bought another house closer to the sanitarium, but instead of moving there, they actually moved out to Topsham, Maine. We're staying with the oldest, can't think of his name right now. But anyways, they moved out there, and they were staying with a family in Topsham, Maine. Well, James L. White decided to go on a preaching tour that winter. Partway through the tour, they left the boys with the family there. Partway through that tour, James White felt impressed they should go back to Topsham, Maine. When they got back there, they found out Henry was very sick. He had pneumonia. Now, back in those days, pneumonia was almost 100% of the time fatal. So Henry's dying wish, he was 16 years old, was to be brought back here to Battle Creek so he could get buried next to his baby brother. So on resurrection morning, he could carry his baby brother, they have him with him. Because you see, he thought that nobody else in the White family would be dead before the Lord came. That's how soon they thought the Lord was coming in 1863. Henry's going to be a very surprised boy, isn't he? Not only is we at the year 2026, but now the whole White family's buried out there. James White died at the age of 60 in 1881 at the Battle Creek Sanitarium. Ellen White died at the age of 87 in 1950 out in Oak Haven, California. Now, she'd actually fallen and broken her hip 153 days previous to that. That's why what happens quite often today with older members of society even, they break their hips quite often at the beginning. They knew she was going to die for quite a while. A lot of the funeral arrangements were made ahead of time. Now, she died on July 15, 1915. It was a Friday afternoon, 3:40. They immediately sent out invitations to all the neighbors around Elms Haven to come to a funeral there on Sunday. They had about 400 people at that funeral. The next day, her body was brought to to the California camp meeting where they had a second funeral for her. They had about 1,000 people at that one there. Her body was just then placed on a train to come back here to Battle Creek. By Thursday night, he come into Kalamazoo, Michigan. There, Edson White and a man by the name of George Israel met the train. George Israel was the man that was going to be in charge of the funeral here. So the casket was brought to his house Thursday night. He was there all day Friday. And then Sabbath morning, July 24, 1915, was brought to the Dime Tabernacle. Where from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock, they had a public viewing of her body. Now, they had 6 young pastors that act as honor guard near her casket. 2 would be there at all times, one at the head of the casket and one at the foot of the casket. Every 20 minutes, they'd switch with 2 of the other pastors. The man that had the sermon that day was a man by the name of Stephen Haskell. Now, Stephen Haskell had been asked to give the funeral about a month before she died because A.G. Daniels was over in Europe. and they weren't sure A.G. Daniels would be back before she died. Well, so they asked Haskell to do it. Daniels did make it back, but because Haskell had already been asked to do it, they had him do it, and A.G. Daniels just did her life sketches. Now, interesting thing about S.N. Haskell is at one time he asked Ellen White to marry him. After she'd been a widow for a while, Haskell's first wife, Mary, had died. They were over in Australia. Haskell came up to Ellen White one day and said, Ellen, the Lord is showing me we should get married. Ellen White says, well, the Lord hadn't shown me the same thing. Well, thank you. But she says, I do know a lady that's looking for a husband. Her name is Hetty Hurd. So he went over and married her. You know, guys, women always tell us we just need directions. That's all we need is directions. We went right to the prophet to get it. Now, it was also while they lived in this house in 1858 that James and Ellen White went on a preaching tour in northern Ohio. March 14, 1858, they were at a place called Lovett's Grove, Ohio. James White had been asked to preach at a funeral. When he got done with his sermon, Ellen White stood up to console the family of the young man that died. When she did that, she went into vision. The funeral stopped. She was in that vision for 2 hours. When she came out of vision, the funeral continued on in the graveyard, and James and Ellen White started making plans to come back here to Battle Creek. 2 days later, they're on a train from Fremont, Ohio to Jackson, Michigan. On that 120-mile train ride, they were discussing the vision that Ellen White had just had and how they were going to publish it. Now, they thought they were just talking between the two of them, but somebody must have been listening in on their conversation. When they got to Jackson, Michigan, Dan and Abigail Palmer, the first converts to the state of Michigan to the Sabbath message, came to the rail station to pick them up and spend the night at their house. While Mrs. White and Abigail Palmer were in the room talking together, Ellen White had a stroke. She was 40 miles from home. She never thought she'd live to see her kids ever again. They had a special prayer for her. She recovered enough that James White got her on the train, got her back here to Battle Creek, and carried her here into this house. 3 months later, she was showing who it was that must have been listening on that conversation on the train, because she was showing Satan who tried to kill her. And why had Satan tried to kill her?
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hapa anajaribu kuelezea nyumba ya mama Ellen G. White, sehemu hiyo ambayo ninaelezea, na tutatoka hapo tutaelekea katika eneo jingine. Endelea kuwa pamoja nasi.
By May of that year, she had part of the book ready for publication, and by the end of the year, she had the book. Had an advertised reviewing herald. It was called Spiritual Gifts, the Great Controversy Between Christ and His Angels and Satan and His Angels. That is an original copy. Wow. When it came out, they were selling it for 25 cents in the Review and Herald. That is probably our most valuable artifact in the whole village right there, because that is one of the originals.
Are you talking about the one in the middle?
Yep. Yes. It was called Spiritual Gifts, the Great Controversy Between Christ and His Angels and Satan and His Angels. Huge title, little book. She spent the rest of her life expanding that book, and they've shortened the title down just to the Great Controversy. Because that might mention the Walden seas and the Hewitt and all those, but it doesn't give all that history. That history was placed in the book after the initial book came out. Because the object was to get that book up. They thought the Lord was coming. And you guys can look in here, and when you get done, we'll come here into the in-law apartment.
Kitabu ndivyo ilikuwa Mama White anaviweka hapa, na vivyo vitabu ambavyo anasisitiza sana kwa ajili ya kipindi hiki. Yale ambayo yote alikuwa ameonyesha, tunaona hii bookshelf imewekwa vizuri, vile vitabu ambavyo vilikuwa ni vya kwanza katika kuviandika, lakini ni vile ambavyo vilikuwa vimebeba ujumbe mzito kwa Adventista wa Sabato. Sasa tunaona namna ambavyo vitabu vilikuwa vimetolewa na namna ambavyo historia, wazee na mashahidi, tumeona vitu vyote. Tunaona namna ambavyo Mungu alimtumia kwa ajili ya kutengeneza njia salama na kadhalika.
Asante sana, asante sana. Tuendelee kubarikiwe mama. Tunaendelea kuangalia hapa, ameeleza mama vizuri, lakini kuna hii original copy ya The Great Controversy ambayo aliandika mara ya kwanza kabisa. Hebu tuende tukaangalia sehemu zingine za nyumba ya mama Ellen G. White.
So anybody had any questions yet that I've jumped on?
Yeah, tunasubiri hapa atuletee maelezo hapa.
All right, this is that in-law apartment. This is where both James White's parents and Ellen White's parents spent some time. Now, when James Elway sold this house in 1863, the Adventist Church didn't get it back for 103 years. The Tabernacle bought it back in 1966. At that time, not a lot of research was done in this house here. They just assumed that Ellen White wrote the book, The Great Controversy, upstairs. So when I came here in 2011, when I first came down here, the tour script said that Ellen White wrote the book, The Great Controversy, upstairs. That was the tour script, approved tour script, so that's what I said. Well then, Stan Hickerson, who was one of the historians, he said to me one day, Don, we have since found that Ellen White didn't write the whole book, The Great Controversy, upstairs. We know she wrote at least a little of the book downstairs. I said, Stan, you're the historian. We'll do it the way you said. Well then, so I'm doing the tour that way, and then one time they had the board meeting here, and I did a tour, and Jim Nix was the head of the White Estate. Stan Hickerson had died of his cancer. He, after I did the tour, he come up to me and he says, Don, we have since found that Ellen White wrote the book, The Whole Great Controversy, downstairs, in a room right behind this wall right here. So I said, Jim, you're the authority. I'll tell it any way you want me to tell it. Well, that's the way it is. He said, we since found it. Unfortunately, in the 50 years from the time that Tabernacle got it until they found that, this room had been turned into a janitor's closet. So if anybody ever asks you what's one of the most important rooms for the whole Seventh-day Adventist Church, you tell them it's the janitor's closet at James Ellen White's house, where she wrote the book, The Great Controversy. Hopefully they're going to get that corrected soon. But so we can't show you where she wrote it. But that would have been the bedroom of probably the cook and the housekeeper and stuff like that.
But sorry, quick question. How you knew that it didn't happen upstairs, but in the main story?
They didn't give me the
rationale.
yeah, the rationale, but they're the authority.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure I could get a hold of Kevin Burton from Carr, and he could probably tell me. Those manuscripts you were talking, they probably have it in there. There you go. You find those, you got the information. All right, watch your step coming down into here.
Okay. Hapa tulikuwa eneo ambalo ibada zilikuwa zinafanyika, ibada za nyumbani. Alikuwa na viti vizuri hapa, ndio eneo la ibada. Je, nyumbani kwako wewe una eneo la ibada kama hivi? Hembo Mama Ellen White anakuwa mfano wa kuigwa sana katika mambo mengi, ikiwepo hili la ibada. Yeah. Hebu tuangalie sasa maeneo mengine ndani ya nyumba hii. Tumetoka jikoni, tumekuja eneo la ibada. Hebu tuangalie maeneo mengine sasa. Endelea kuwa pamoja nasi. Hii ni UMILELE TV tukirusha mubashara tokea Michigan, Battle Creek nchini Marekani. Karibu sana. Tupo na Mama Tamali hapa. Na hebu tusikie anatuambia nini.
All right, this room here, this is the parlor. This is where the family would gather. This is where they'd entertain their guests. This is where the guests would come in, because family always come to the back. The blue room right here, that's the boys' bedroom. The bed in there is called a trundle bed. We do know they did have a trundle bed. So on a bed like that, probably the older boys, Henry and Edson, would have slept on top. Maybe the third son would have slept on that bed that pulled out.
Chumba cha vijana wake wa kiume hiki.
So
Mama Ellen G. White.
That wall right there, the one at the top of the steps. That costs $500. The room right here, the dining room. That used to be the dining room kitchen until we put the dishes on in the house. Then it just became the dining room. Now, their worships were at 7 in the morning and 7 at night.
Dining room.
Okay. So the cook would start breakfast at 5 o'clock in the morning. The family would go in there to eat breakfast. Then at 7 o'clock they'd come out here for worship. Now for those worships, if James White was here, he'd probably tell the family maybe for worship what was going to be in the View and Herald that week. He might read some scripture. They might have some songs, have a prayer. James White might go down Champion Street to the View and Herald. Ellen White might go upstairs and start writing. Now, if James White was here, maybe Ellen White would be in charge of worship. She might do the same thing. And if they were both gone, whoever's in charge of the boys was in charge of worship. Her words of wisdom were probably, Willie, behave yourself. Not that it ever did any good. Now, for those worships, though, when they first hear, they had to sing a cappella. But Henry, the oldest boy, was very musical. So we convinced his 2 younger brothers to help him start a garden. They sold the fruits, the vegetables, the seeds from that garden until they raised $100 and they bought a melodeon very similar to the one that's in the corner right there. Now remember, the price of the house was $500. So that was a huge investment. Now, right behind there, that's called a day couch, right behind there. And today, we probably just call them a couch or sofa or something like that. All right, we are going up to the bedrooms. I see everybody's got good shoes on. If you still got your shoes still feel wet, be very careful on the steps because they are very slippery if they get wet. Use a handrail on the way up if you would. I got some hand sanitizer up there so you can sanitize your hand. I'll meet you in this room right up here and we'll finish up.
Ya, unajisikiaje furaha ya kuwepo hapa ndani ya nyumba ya Mama Ellen G. White?
Kuona huyu mama kila ninapoingia ninabarikiwa. Kwanza hili eneo tu ameweka eneo la vitabu. Muda wote akipitia kinanda ameshoka na kuja hapa anaweza kusoma. Ni muda wote alikuwa kitafakari kwa mama. Hiyo sasa.
Ya, hii kinanda kilikuwa ni cha mtoto. Kwa hiyo mtoto hapa ana kinanda chake, anapiga hapa, anasoma hapa. Ya, sasa tunaenda kuangalia chumbani alikokuwa analala yeye mwenyewe Mama Ellen G. White. Unafikiri kutakuwaje kwaje hivi? Hebu tuambie hisia zako kidogo.
Naona kutoka kwa namna ya pekee. Ngoja twende tuone kwanza. Kabla tujaribu utamu.
Kabla tujaribu utamu. Hem, tupande twende mahali alikuwa analala na tuweze kuona mambo kadha wa kadha. Yeah, just go. Okay, twende tupande. Tupande ngazi. Tupande ngazi. Pana giza kidogo lakini hizi ndo ngazi ambazo nimepanda hapa. Yeah.
So this was James and Ellen's best friend?
Yes and no.
Hapa ndio kuvua hili, utabeba kuna Biblia.
Look at the closet.
How we doing? How many more we got?
Karibu, tupo sasa gorofani. Tupate maelezo kidogo kwamba tupo hapa.
Your last one? All right. This bedroom here was Ellen White's bedroom.
Chumba cha
Now, one
Ellen
of the top
White.
steps, that was actually James White's bedroom.
Oh my God.
Oh. Well, it was a little more common for couples to sleep apart in those days. But this worked out to the benefit of both James and Ellen White. James White, when he was here in Battle Creek working at the Review and Herald, he worked long hours. When he came home, it was to sleep. Ellen White never do a time she's going to get up and write. That way he could sleep, she could get up and write. Now, this room is her bedroom. It was her office. It was the nursery. It was the kids' playroom. This was the everything room, where his bedroom was just to sleep. And yes, ladies, that is Ellen White's closet. That's all women got as closets back in those days. That's all I'll say about that, because I know what. But then they put the rest of their clothes in a chest like that back there. The baby bed here, this might be very similar to what the one John Herbert was in for the 3 months that he lived here. The bed needs to go. She wouldn't have had a bed like this because they didn't have foam rubber back in those days. She should have a rope bed, and I know where it's at, so I'm going to bring it back. This is the vanity like they would have had. Their pitcher of water, their mirror, place for combs, place for their towels, their soap. The chair back there, that was given to us by the descendants of a man by the name of Mr. Littlejohn. Now, Mr. Littlejohn, or Elder Littlejohn, was a black blind pastor and also president of Battle Creek College. And those descendants said that when Mrs. White would visit the Littlejohns, that is the chair she always liked to sit in. So when the village started, they gave us that chair for there. Now, Willie used to like to come up here while all the brothers were out playing, and his mom was up here working. He had a game very similar to this right here. So while Mom would be working, he'd be playing with his marbles. He'd just put them in there, and the marbles would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until they dropped out the end. The only problem was, And when his older brothers came, they would steal his marbles. Nobody likes to lose their marbles. So Ellen White had something like this. This is the foot warmer. And what they would do is they take this cup out here, you take some coals, put it in there, and if she sat in a chair like that, she could put her feet on it. Well, Willie thought, you know, that would be a great place to hide my marbles. So he took a sock, he put his marbles in there, rolled it up, and put it in the foot warmer. That's why we know the story about this and the story of the foot warmer that they were in. Yeah, so Willie was in trouble all the time. I think his brothers were probably, you know, you look at that bed down there, the older brothers probably pushed that bed underneath there. He was in there at night, so come back.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. Okay.
All right, now this brings us to the end of the tour. I would like to thank you all for coming. I think if you do want to get out to the cemetery, that the cemetery will be open for... it usually closes a half hour before sunset. And sunset's at 5:20, so you'd be able to get out there to see that.
What about that Bible, the big
Bible? I forgot about this Bible here. Is the same size. Because it used to not be in here. And
okay.
This Bible is the same size and weight as the Harmon Bible. Now Ellen White had 4 visions with Bibles. People don't realize that. They put all the stories of the vision with Bible into one.
Okay.
There was 4 visions with Bibles. This is the Harmon family Bible. The one that everybody thinks about is the Thayer Bible, where she held it out in her hand and was pointing it to them. We're not sure the size of that one was. The Thayer Bible was part of the 4-hour vision, her longest vision, but she only had that Bible out there for just a small portion of that vision. So she might
try with one hand.
She might have had that Bible holding it for maybe 20 minutes the most. Where you hear that she had it for hours and hours and hours. Can't be. The longest vision was 4 hours. The vision, so many other things took place in that vision before she held the Bible out.
She used to hold by one hand, so can you try by one hand?
But the original one is in Silver Springs, Maryland at the General Conference Office.
Okay.
It's the same kind.
The same kind. Okay.
They used to let the
So
That's just an old Bible. That one you got to be real careful because it's falling apart.
Yeah.
I'd say there's one thing I forgot to tell you about too.
You know, I'm streaming live, so he'll take
The
pictures.
neighbors would save their rags. She'd rip them into strips, sew them together, and then she'd braid them into rugs, like under this young lady right here.
Okay.
Yeah. She thought that was the grandest of hobbies. James White not so thrilled about it. He even made up a song where he'd and would sing it as he's walking down the street. In heaven above, where all is love, there'll be no rag rugs there. She decided that she'd quit making rag rugs.
Okay.
All right, now when you do go downstairs, please use the handle, and you can go out the front door because I think the other tour is in the back. Okay. So you can go out the front door.
Okay.
And if you'd like to help the ministry, there's a place for donations.
Utampiga picha hii. Okay. Oh yeah, that's the best picture. Okay. Hapa ndipo chumbani ambapo Mama Ellen G. White alikuwa anafanya mambo yake. Biblia ile kubwa ile ambayo inafanana kabisa na hii ambayo alikuwa ishika katika zile njozi zake 4. Lakini hapa ndicho kitanda ambacho alikuwa akilala. Na hii kitanda alikuwa analala yeye na mume wake katika chumba kingine. Tupo na Mama Tamali hapa. Ndiye aliyetuleta hasa huko siku hii ya leo. Tukiongea kufanya live streaming kutokea hapa Battle Creek. Unajisikiaje kushika Biblia?
Yaani nimebarikiwa mno. Katika vitu vyote nimebarikiwa sana ndugu mtangazaji.
Okay.
Biblia ina uzito mkubwa sana.
Okay.
Nawezaje kuibeba? Ni zaidi ya kilo 3.
Yeah.
Aliweza kuibeba. akaenda huko nayo. Na kila unapoenda, kila unapopita ni rumu za watoto, ni wapi, kuna ushuhuda wa kutosha. Amewekea vitabu vya kutosha. Eneo la ibada. Nimebarikiwa sana.
Moyo wako unajisikiaje kufika hapa?
Nimejisikia kububujika sana.
Sasa ukisoma vitabu utaanza kuona the reality.
Haleluya.
Amen.
Nitaelewa kabisa uhalisia wa historia ya kanisa letu.
Amen. Basi tunatoka hapa. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do not see it. Okay.
Oh, asante. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, tunashuka sasa, tumemaliza. Hapa alikuwa analala mwenyewe James White. Akitoka akichoka analala hapa. Hataki bugza yoyote. Okay. Tunashuka kwenye ngazi. Ziko ngazi steep sana. Nyumba ya Ellen G. White.
Umeacha mle kwenye gari.
Yeah.
Nakatoa vimia mimi. Jamani. Moja.
Yeah.
Kwenye gari.
Tumetoka nje bila kuvaa koti baridi.
Okay, tumekuwa na wakati mzuri hapa katika nyumba ya mama Ellen G. White. Ndio tumetoka ndani hapa. Watu wanachukua picha mbalimbali kama kumbukumbu. Watu mamia wanatembelea hapa katika nyumba ya mama Ellen G. White hapa Battle Creek, Michigan nchini Marekani. Hii ni UMILELE TV tukilive stream tokea hapa Battle Creek nchini Marekani. Hello guys. Hi, how are you?
We're great.
Very great. Okay. I'm live streaming. Yeah, I'm live streaming YouTube. I want to know where you coming from.
From Canada.
From Canada.
Toronto.
Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada.
Philippines, then to Lansing, here, Michigan.
Okay, I've been
Originally from Philippines.
Originally from Philippines.
Yes.
How do you find this tour?
Oh, so
We found it online.
Okay.
And then it's heritage, I don't know, site. And then
Yeah.
we log in there, made an appointment, and then here we
Which
are.
part have you enjoyed being here?
First of all,
them.
All of them.
all of them.
And
Oh, you
it's
see
more
the
interesting
pictures.
when it's winter time.
Yeah.
We've been here
The
in the
weather.
summer,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so lots of fun in the winter too.
The weather and the cute houses, and especially this house of Ellen.
The
Yeah.
story about Ellen
And
G.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the historical.
Okay, nice. I'm glad to meet you. My name is Pastor Benson.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pastor.
I was pastoring in Tanzania in Africa, but now I'm here in Michigan at Kalamazoo here.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice meeting you.
Nice meeting
So we're
you.
gonna watch the.
Yeah, you can watch. I'll give you the link, and then
Okay,
you can
thank
watch
you.
at least the whole trip, especially the trip right here.
Yeah.
Our group.
Yeah, I can give you the link, and then you can watch it.
Okay, and you can share it to our
After
friends.
here, we're going
Of
to the
course.
cemetery yet.
You are going to the cemetery?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going there. I've been there.
We'll end here.
We started there, then we kept. Yeah, you start from there. Thank you very much. When are you going back to Canada?
We're leaving tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Just visited her.
Okay, say hi to people over there.
Hello, everyone.
Thank,
From Tanzania.
yeah, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you
These
very
are
much.
our kids.
Oh, how are you guys?
Yeah, we want to go.
We're glad to meet you. I'm live streaming here on YouTube. So how do you find here? Do you like the place?
Yeah, it's good. My cousin can also say a lot of things.
This one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
He's running.
He's afraid of the camera.
Thank you very much.
Watch that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can follow this in UMILELE. Can you say UMILELE? You just let me write for you.
Okay, thank you. Because I think your vlog is very fun.
Okay.
For the dress.
Oh my God.
Hi guys.
Yeah.
Is this in YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay.
UMILELE TV.
Thank you.
The first one in the Swahili language.
Oh yeah.
So you can watch over there.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can visit Philippines.
Yes, I can. One day.
Yes.
And I was planning to come and do my master's.
In IS.
Yes. Yeah.
Manila.
I planned so, but now I'm doing right here at Andrews. Yeah.
Andrews, you want to visit also
Andrews. Okay, I'm right there.
So how far is Andrews from here?
From here, only 63 miles.
How many hours?
Only 1 hour. Oh no, 1 hour and 1 hour and 30 minutes.
What time is it? It's hard.
It's not very far. It's not very far.
Next time around. Next time.
Okay, see you guys. Yeah, if you don't meet in this earth, let's meet in heaven.
Yes. Praise God.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Yeah, nilikuwa najaribu kufunga kipindi hapa na watu kutoka Philippines lakini wako kule Canada. Ubarikiwe sana. This is Benson from here Battle Creek, Michigan, United States of America. Uwe na wakati mzuri. Barikiwa sana. Amen. Bye bye.